Hey everyone, Dan here. We're near market close on Friday, June 18th. Today we're going to take a look at NCTY. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And please also feel free to share these videos if you're on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, what have you. Shares mean a lot, as do comments. Feel free to comment below. I look at those every evening, though it may take me a few days to get back to you. All right, so NCTY, The9 Limited is the company name, and it's had quite a wild ride here in the last 6 months or so. A big impulsive move. I mean, at the time it seemed big, from about 3 or even 2 up to about 27. I mean, that looks like such a blip on the radar compared to this move up here. But then it sold off. Down to about 8.5, and then it had this meteoric rise, 10x, all the way up to nearly 90, so I guess 11x, and then sold off down to about 32, tried to rise again, got knocked back down to 31, made a higher high, but then a lower low, and continued to sell off from there. Today we're sitting at about 1678. And you can see it started to make a little bit of a rise here again, though if you see the beginnings of this movement look very similar to the beginnings of this movement. So I would just sort of be cautious. You see there's obviously the volume, you see the big volume here that rose that price up, and then the big volume here that gave it the recent push. Interestingly enough, that volume is not rivaled by the volume that had this skyrocketing up here. So for whatever reason, that just is the case with NCTY. But let's take a look at some of the charting, some of the price targets we might be able to look at, support zones, that sort of thing. And we do have a nice swing here, so we should be able to lift several support zones. So here's one that was support way back here, support way back here, and then has held support here. I would prefer if there was also like a better resistance line, but these moves were so impulsive and so quick that it didn't give it a lot of time. Like in this region, at least we would have more zones that encompass both support and resistance, because those are just stronger zones. But here's another one rated about 1420. So I'm going to work myself from the bottom up, obviously. That wasn't obvious. And sort of mark some of the zones that I think will be support and demand zones as the price moves, either up or down. Down's a bit trickier because there's not a ton to go off of here. But that's the lowest one that I'm going to chart down there. Might be a big rush downward if it can't hold that 10-ish level. That was kind of a sloppy zone. It's going to be better here. And so there are a bunch of stops on the way up, and like for how low the price is, at 16 and some change, there are some pretty good bumps possible. This is a good zone here. Previous resistance, support, zone, support, resistance. So that 29.14, if it could get up there, I mean, it's a long ways to go, but it's not like it doesn't have a history of that. But that would be a really excellent support zone. And some of these up here, like I said, this chunk of area to grab support and resistance zones is pretty solid. But we'll take it up to $50 for now and just sort of say, these are the stops along the way that we may see. So what I look for is like a hold if it needs that support at 1420. Unfortunately, there's not a ton of additional support before that, though. I mean, there is this like very immediate support zone where it has been holding. I guess we could include this area back here. So, I would look for it to not breach that zone if possible, sort of like a cautionary zone. And then, what you may want to look for is the thing that I often preach, which is buying dips into price strength. So in other words, the price starts to show some strength. Maybe it makes a run at 24, can't quite get there, starts to feel the resistance, the selling pressure, not power, the selling pressure, and then starts to dip back down toward this 21, and then maybe you wait to see what it does here, because this stock is just so impulsive, such crazy swings. But you could see if it starts to show some price strength here, you could start averaging in, assuming that it will bounce on that 21.5. The other reason that I would be kind of cautious is because if it doesn't hold that, the next stop down is nearly $4 away. And so that's a big percentage to continue to average down for like what would probably be a relatively uncertain outcome. So, but you could, see if it has some price strength here. If it does, buy into it, and then it may bounce up. That's what we'd be looking for. That's what I mean. Dip buying into price strength. So overall, it's on an uptrend, but of course, every uptrend has some stops along the way. If it did break this and didn't bounce there and came down, you could do the same thing here. Look for price strength and dip buy that, and look for the rise up. So that's what I would do on this one. Because it does obviously have this crazy history, but I'd really look for it to hold this zone, and then use these upper price targets as, I guess, a few options depending on what your goal is or what it is that you're trying to do. Dip buying into price strength, like we just talked about, trimming your position. So maybe you have 100 shares or something, and you want to sell off 20 of them at $21, and then another 20 of them at $24, and so on and so forth, and just sort of like lock in profit along the way. Or you could just pick one of these zones, and just say, as it approaches this zone, I'm assuming it's going to have some selling pressure when it gets toward that, and I'm just going to sell my complete position and just take my profit. So that's what I would look for. It would be helpful to pull in some additional information. I mean, I guess the only other potential, before we move over to the indicators, there's obviously like a downtrend here that it's sort of like consolidated its way out of. And so now the question is, but what's it going to do with that? Is it going to be able to move beyond that? So it consolidated itself out like mid-May, and now it's past mid-June. So it's been consolidating for about a month. So the question is, what does it want to do? Can it actually continue to gain support and make some big moves up, or is it going to continue to kind of sell off and test that 1420 zone? So I would wait to see kind of where the next big move is coming and which direction that's going to take. On the indicator side of things, the MAs are bunching up. It took a long time for this 200 to come back down to meet the 20 and the 50 because it sold off so quickly. But it is right now where it is. They're all bunched up. So this could give you a good opportunity that as the MAs unravel in a certain direction, whether that's bullish or bearish, if they start to unravel relatively quickly, that could give you the strongest indication that the big bullish or the big bearish move is now happening, and sort of play it accordingly. So I would keep a strong eye on those. On the RSI front, relatively low on the RSI, even though it is in this sort of like holding this level here between the 21 down to, say, the 16 level. So, it does have definitely the potential for buying pressure to come in from where the RSI sits right now. On the MACD, as you'd anticipate, everything relatively flat, a little bit of bullish momentum that got it up here, and then just like some bearish momentum that kind of dipped it, but mostly just killed the bullish momentum. So that can be a good sign when the bearish momentum comes in and all that it's able to do is kind of stall the bullish momentum, but it can't really reverse the trend. So if it can continue to hold this yellow area, which is a big question because it's in there right now, if it can develop support at that 1778 level, that could give it the necessary, firepower or momentum in order to push it up into the 20s again and build from there. But for now, we do see also this, bearish pressure is actually picking up again. So it was increasing, and it was dying down. But then just as it was about to kind of peter out, it picked right back up. And now the MACD is moving further away from the signal at the moment, where what we want to see it cross over and have a bullish cross. But getting very close to the baseline, so it definitely leaves it a lot of room to swing up if it's able to make that move and go from there. All right, well, that's what I would look for in NCTY. Good luck if you're in this one. This was a suggestion. I had never looked at this before, but this was somebody requested this either in the comments section on YouTube or on Twitter. I'll put my Twitter handle in the description below as well. So feel free to drop tickers. I get to them as I can. Try to fit them in within a week, but I'm pretty backed up at the moment. There's been a lot of requests that have come in. So I appreciate it, but just be patient because there's a lot of standard videos that I do, and I can't just do nights of requests, unfortunately. All right, well, I hope you had a good trading week, and I wish you the best in the week ahead. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.